Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a team with a very spicy pick that helped me climb back to Legend rank and get very close to making it to the global leaderboards, which means top 500 ranked in the world. Now the team features a Great League HAXORUS. HAXORUS, one of the glassiest Pokemon that you can use in the Great League, but with counter, Breaking Swipe, and Earthquake, it is an absolute menace in shield advantage situations as a closer. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out the HAXORUS team in action in the Open Great League. Hopping to the first match, picking up a terrible lead, Toxapex into Galarian Stunfisk. Immediate save switch into Metacham, opponent throws 2 mud shots and then counter switches into Altaria. This is terrific for me. I have an energy head start. I'll make 2 ice punches into zero shield so I can guarantee either shield advantage or switch advantage, and on top of that, baiting out the Altaria is massive because Altaria absolutely crushes HAXORUS in the back. Their Sky Attack not gonna KO, Metacham makes the Ice Punch, opponent lets it through, and Metacham is able to win switch. Opponent sends in their own Medi, but honestly this is perfect for me. With switch advantage, I can now put Toxapex onto the Metacham. I do run a very high ranked Toxapex. The goal of this team is to have 2 extremely bulky Pokemon that you can use to absorb charge moves, and then you can hopefully save shields for the glassy sweeper in the back that is Earthquake HAXORUS. Sludge Wave is going to get shielded. This is not in a counter down range for HAXORUS, so I actually decide to shield back. Typically, I do like saving shields for the glassy HAXORUS, but in this case, getting that poison jab damage is really valuable. I go for Sludge Wave number 2, I get the final shield, and this is setting up HAXORUS perfectly. They have to go for the Psychic 2 KO here, so I am going to let this through. In comes the HAXORUS looking for the 1 shield counter down. Metacham will grab a shield with the Ice Punch, and then they can send back in the Galarian Stunfisk. Stunfisk is 6 mud shots away from the Earthquake, but so is the HAXORUS. HAXORUS easily winning CMP over the Stunfisk, getting the knockout. In comes the Metacham, but Metacham runs out of HP as HAXORUS secures the win. Hopping into the next match, picking up a positive lead, Toxapex into Lickitung. While Toxapex is able to win all even shielding situations here, I don't really want to stay in this matchup and let my Toxapex get too low, because if they have a fairy type in the back, then unfortunately once my Toxapex is gone, I'm just going to get swept. So I will play this out to start with. I want to get some chip damage onto the Lickitung, but I will eventually be looking to pivot into the Metacham to check and see if there are any fairy types in the back. They're going to be firing off the Body Slam from the Lickitung. That connects onto the Toxapex. I farm up till just shy of the Sludge Wave, and now I send in Metacham. They're firing off a Body Slam. That's perfectly fine by me. Metacham can tank that for days. Opponent is now going to mirror with their own Metacham, and this is perfect. This tells me not only do they not have a fairy type in the back, but I baited out their Metacham, which is big, because HAXORUS can close against a lot of things, but it really does not appreciate opposing Metachams. Opponent does not bait, they go for the Psychic, and now I can bring in my Toxapex. Honestly, I potentially could have gone for a Brine and farm down, but I wanted to guarantee the knockout, so I go for the Sludge Wave there. Sludge Wave is going to KO the Metacham. Opponent waiting the timer. In the back, they have Lantern, and it's time for HAXORUS to shine. HAXORUS absolutely obliterates Lantern, as it's going to be resisting everything the Lantern throws while outputting heavy neutral damage. Surf, after the debuff, really not going to be doing a lot by HAXORUS standards. I'm just looking to massively overfarm here, and now I finally decide to go for the Breaking Swipe. I was watching for the potential catch. Opponent sends in the Lickitung, they reset the debuff, but all that does is just give more farm to HAXORUS. HAXORUS firing off the Breaking Swipe, that gets shielded from the Lantern, and we get the catch onto the Toxapex as well. Surf does absolutely nothing. Lantern in a very difficult situation, and that's going to be game over as Toxapex gets the knockout with the Brine. Hopping into the next match, leading Toxapex into Digong. This is a matchup that I believe Toxapex is able to win in the zero shield, but once shields are in play, Digong is typically favored. So I'm going to stay in this matchup to start. Same game plan as before, really just try and get some chip damage onto the Digong, but I will eventually look to save switch into that Metacham, and let's see what they have in the back. Opponent is going to commit the shield. As you're going to notice, I'm not going to shield back here, because I know that in the 1 shield, I do not win this matchup, so I'm just going to tank the energy, and now send in Metacham. Digong staying in here to debuff me, so it looks like they do not have a good check to counter in the back, as my opponent sends in their own Metacham. I'm debuffed, but again, this is perfect for me. I baited out their Metacham. I'm able to make it to the Psychic. I'm farming up, going for Psychic number 2, but I do lose CMP in the Metacham mirror. I'm expecting they're going to full send the Psychic, and they do, so I will commit the shield. My Psychic is not going to KO, but it will get some very important chip damage onto my opponent's Metacham. I'm farming up, I'm expecting them to go for the CMP tie, so I'm actually going to bank the energy for later, send in the Toxapex, and my opponent is not actually running Ice Punch, they're running Power Up Punch. I get the farm down with the Toxapex. In the back, my opponent is running Bastiodon. Okay, Brine is going to connect. They send in Digong. Digong gets the farm down. This is going to be a little awkward. Metacham, very low on health. I throw one counter, and I'm going for the Ice Punch. Ice Punch, of course, is double resisted, but I just need whatever chip I can get. They live on 1 HP. They throw their energy. This works for me. I get a free counter onto the HAXORUS. I don't take the Ice Shard, and there's just nothing Bastiodon can do. I have Earthquake, but I can guarantee the victory just by going straight Breaking Swipe here. Just continually lower the amount of damage Bastiodon is able to do. I can shield here, and this is a very comfortable win. Opponent goes for the Bad Manners Flamethrower, recognizing that the game is over as HAXORUS farms down. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Toxapex into Lickitung. Same game plan as before. I'm going to stay in this matchup to start, get some chip damage, and then I will need to save switch into the Metacham to check for any fairy types that might be lurking in the back. Body Slam is going to connect onto the Toxapex, and I'm returning fire with the Sludge Wave. As we've seen, Sludge Wave does quite a lot of damage to the Lickitung, my opponent protecting the Lickitung with an early shield. I continue to farm up with the Toxapex. They fire off their charge move just as I reach the Brine. I'm going to bank that for later, send in the Metacham. Lickitung firing off a charge move, and that's perfectly fine by me. Body Slam is going to connect. Opponent sends in Lantern. Now that is a bit unfortunate, as I would definitely prefer to see the Lantern against my HAXORUS. Psychic is going to connect. I continue to farm up. Lantern, I could see them potentially going for the Thunderbolt and the Spark down. They end up going for the double Surf, which does guarantee that they're going to get the knockout here before I make another charge move. But this sets up HAXORUS. I'm going to go for the one shield counter down with HAXORUS, and HAXORUS is going to leave with quite a lot of energy to threaten whatever my opponent has in the back. HAXORUS gets the full farm down. Let's see, what do they have lurking in the back? They're probably not sending back in the Lickitung, and it's going to be a Metacham. Metacham, of course, does have access to Ice Punch. This is going to be a very interesting endgame. I'm farming up, making it to Breaking Swipe number 2. This is going to be getting the Metacham low, and here, I actually make a crucial mistake. I switch in. I should have sniped with the Brine. I don't snipe with the Brine. I shielded Ice Punch bait. In comes the Lickitung, and unfortunately, everything goes wrong. I forgot that I had banked a Brine. If I threw the Brine there, then I'm in a pretty solid position to win that game, but I forgot I had the energy. I don't throw it, and that's going to cost me, because Metacham is going to get the full farm down here. Even if I don't throw this Brine, they're getting the farm down before I do anyway. Metacham gets the counter down, and I resign the match. Hopping into the next match, sending Toxapex into Defense Deoxys. On paper, this feels like it should be a terrible matchup for Toxapex, but Toxapex can actually win the 1 shield and the 2 shield, so this is a pretty solid spot for me to be in. They build up to the Thunderbolt, they go for the Psycho Boost, a save switch into Registeel will be answered by HAXORUS. HAXORUS will be outpaced here. I'm committing the shield, opponent baits with the Zap Cannon, and they get the attack drop. That's unfortunate. I'm not going to be able to counter it into Breaking Swipe range, so I'm just going to go for the Earthquake. Earthquake, of course, will be lethal, but the nice thing is, I overfarm, so I leave with energy, so I can threaten the Deoxys. Typically, with the Deoxys lead, they're double weak to counter in the back, so I decide, honestly, even though I have a second counter user with the Metacham, it could probably still be worth it to try and preserve the HAXORUS, so I go for a bit of an interesting play. I double shield the HAXORUS, I switch back into the Toxapex to catch the 3 stages debuffed Psycho Boost, and in the back, my opponent is running A-Slash. I fire off the Brine, it's the Shadow A-Slash as well. So the nice thing is I have 2 counter users. So the A-Slash is going to get absolutely melted, and even though Metacham doesn't have shields, Metacham can very comfortably tank charge moves here. They get the full farm down, leaving with so much energy, but it's not going to matter. I can send in the Metacham. Opponent is going to fire off the Ice Punch, maybe hoping to make it to 3 Ice Punches, but they're not. They would have been safer going for the double drill run there, but still, that's not going to be enough to get rid of the Metacham. Opponent is going to send in Deoxys. Psychic does slightly more damage, so I'm going to go for the Psychic here. Opponent can't afford to shield. They're going to be forced to throw a move at the Metacham, and that's going to ensure game over, as I can just send in the HAXORUS. I actually won't need the energy I saved from earlier, as HAXORUS just gets the farm down. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Toxapex into Noctowl. Toxapex wins all even shield situations versus Noctowl, and the nice thing is Toxapex doesn't even have to brine bait to do so. They're going to fire off the Sky Attack. Toxapex can very comfortably tank this. I just have to watch for a catch of the Sludge Wave. They go for a catch onto Metacham, but I actually want to throw this energy onto Metacham. If it was something like a G-Fisk, I wouldn't throw the energy, but they bring in a Metacham, so it's honestly worth getting the damage or the shield advantage, and then, once I have an advantage, I can bring in my own Metacham. They go for the Psychic. I will commit the shield. Luckily, they do not get the debuff. That's very nice for me. I'm returning fire with a Psychic of my own. Opponent is going to let that through. I continue to farm. They're firing off another charge move. This is not going to be enough to KO. I will be able to tank the Psychic, and now I'm looking to overfarm. I'm able to make it to the back-to-back Ice Punches, and this way I leave with an Ice Punch to threaten the Noctowl as well. Opponent shields. Maybe they lost track of energy there, as not only do they lose the shield, they're going to lose switch advantage as well. Noctowl does get a bit of farm, but I can just put it back on the Toxapex, and in the back, they have Lantern. In comes HAXORUS, and the opponent concedes the match. We see same leads in the next match, Toxapex into Noctowl. Again, this is a very favorable matchup for me, so I'm just going to tank a move and watch for a potential Sludge Wave catch onto a Steel type. They're firing off their Sky Attack. I'm very comfortable to tank this. Opponent is going to save switch into Metacham, so I'm perfectly fine with throwing my Sludge Wave here. Opponent is going to shield the Sludge Wave. So far, this game is playing out pretty identically to the last one. They're going to fire off the Psychic. I'm probably going to end up shielding one in this matchup. This time, I do the correct play, which is to no shield the first. You know, just in case they get the debuff, you don't really want to shield the first and then have the next one do more because they got a debuff. I'm farming up here. I actually decided to go for the Ice Punch on the CMP tied to their Psychic. So this way, I can get some chip damage and put it into a perfect farm down range for the Toxapex. So my Metacham has done its job. It basically neutralized their Meti. Very nice undercharge from my opponent as I bring in my own Toxapex and get the farm down. In the back, they have Lantern. I'm going to send in HAXORUS. HAXORUS will be hit with a Surf from the Lantern. I'm going to let this go. Surf not going to be enough to KO. In comes the Noctowl, and behold the might of HAXORUS. I fire off the Breaking Swipe. That does some solid damage. They're firing off a charge move from the Noctowl, and I'm going to commit the shield here. I'm not going to be able to farm down without them making a move, so I'm going to farm up and go for the Breaking Swipe on the CMP tie to their Sky Attack. Opponent is going to burn the final shield, and I'm going to shield as well. Let's finish the game with HAXORUS. Now, I could win just by going straight Breaking Swipe versus the Lantern, but I want to finish the game with style, going for the Earthquake, and I just threw the game. That's what battling at 1 AM will do for you. I could have just won it by going straight Breaking Swipe. I tried to go for the Earthquake for content, and that cost me the game. Hopping into the final match, and we see a massive core breaker on the lead, Toxapex into Shadow Gliscor. The one good thing is that Toxapex is able to fire back for super effective damage with Brine. I will respect the Earthquake. Opponent full sends the Quake. They save switch into Lantern, and you already know it is HAXORUS time. They make it to a potential Thunderbolt here. I have a decision to make. They actually end up going for the Surf, but I shield the first just because I know that after I Breaking Swipe, of course, it's going to be doing a lot less damage, and I can leave this with energy that I can use to threaten the Gliscor. Opponent plays to a CMP tie that they do not win. Breaking Swipe KOs the Lantern. And now if they send back in the Gliscor, Gliscor is not going to have a fun time going up against this Breaking Swipe damage. Back in comes the Gliscor. I'm firing off the Breaking Swipe, and my opponent is going to take a lot of damage here unless they shield. They are going to shield, and they're forced to throw. HAXORUS with the debuffs, making it so they cannot farm down. Night Slash will be lethal. In comes the Toxapex, and it's Registeel in the back. Now, I'm at an energy disadvantage, so I'm going to go for the Ice Punch here. Now, Ice Punch doesn't do a lot of damage, but I'm looking for any and all damage that I can get onto the Registeel before they potentially debuff me. And as you're going to see, Zap Cannon does get the debuff, so getting that extra damage before they debuff me proved to be extremely important in this match. I now go for the Psychic, it's debuffed, but I'm able to get the Registeel extremely low, and I should be in an okay spot here. Reggie goes for the Focus Blast, that's not gonna cut it. They're looking for any and all farm for the Shadow Gliscor, but Gliscor is not going to be able to make it to the Earthquake. I saved all this energy on the Toxapex from the start of the game. Brine number 1 gets the shield, and Toxapex will secure the victory with Brine number 2 as it KOs the Shadow Gliscor. All in all, I had a ton of fun getting to run this team. I believe I got as high as 30-80 with the team, so I was just shy of making it to the global leaderboards, but I feel like it is a very fun team. It's a team that definitely does require a bit of nuance since HAXORUS isn't the easiest Pokemon to use ever. But man, teams like this, where you're running a very glassy, volatile sweeper and 2 tanks, are just so much fun to run, because that kind of playstyle really inspires you to think outside the box and prioritize less about switch advantage and more about just catching moves onto the bulky mons and just trying to set up your sweeper for success. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.